Thank you. Good evening, friends, and welcome to this evening's talk. I will try and share with you some of my experiences as a cartoonist in the city then known as Bombay and now known as Mumbai. Um it all started about in the beginning of 1980. An old friend of mine who used to publish his work in the Express magazine, which is the Sunday edition of the Indian Express, and he used to give articles there. So he said, "Why don't you try and see if they would be interested in some cartoons that you do?" So I said, "Well, why not? I can always try and see if." So he gave me an introduction to see Mr. Dom Morris, who was then the editor, and I said, "Why not?" I just went down to Nariman Point and went to the Express Towers, went on the elevator up to his office, and knocked on the door. And the voice inside said, "Come in." So I walked into the office, and there was Dom Morris hunched over his desk, going through some papers. He looked up and said, "Yes." So I said, "Mr. Dom Morris, I'm an amateur cartoonist, and I wanted to see if I can do some cartoons for your paper." So he stared at me for a little while and opened the drawer on his desk, took out a uh, manuscript, and said, "Here, I want an illustration by tomorrow morning." Wow, I didn't know what to say. So I just blurted out, "Sure." So I took the manuscript home and read it, and it was basically about Richard Attenborough, who was given the approval to produce the movie Gandhi, and the local Bombay film industry was not too happy about it, and there were a lot of protests and all. And that was what the article was about. I said, "Let me start doing something." But trouble is, I didn't have any style of drawing. I didn't know like what an illustration should be. I had no reference material. I had no drawing material, and the only drawing material I had was the good old pen holder with a nib. Um, First of all, I needed a reference for Mr. Richard Attenborough, so took a trip down to the Asiatic Library and went through some magazines. And since it was a hot topic in Bombay, found a picture, did a little sketch, came home, and set about trying to draw a picture for the article or a cartoon image. And it was like just fumbling around. And finally, I did produce something. And the next day, went and presented it to the editor. And this was the drawing. Now, when I look at this drawing, sorry, it's gone ahead. I'm having a little problem with the, yeah, okay, there we are. And when I look at this drawing now and say, did I really draw that? There are so many mistakes in this drawing, and there's a problem in the perspective, there's a problem in the foreshortening. Um, Sort of I think the effort put in was a little too much for a drawing like this. So anyway, this drawing was published, and it was my first publication in any magazine or paper of national category. So anyway, once this started, I uh, sort of did some more cartoons for that paper. But as you can imagine, that they were all sort of like, yeah, sorry, my alarm going off. Anyway, so I did some more cartoons in the next couple of months. Not very impressive, just single column cartoons, and this went on for the next couple of months. In the meantime, I started improving my skills as a cartoonist. I started sketching. I started doodling. I even took some classes in JJ School of Art, and sort of like try to improve my skills to a level that I would be comfortable with. Around November of that year, I got a call from the Express Towers that the editor wanted to see me. So down I went to Nariman Point and went, and again the same thing, knock knock. And I was half expecting that I'd see the grumpy old Dom Mores. And I opened the door and walked in, and what do I find? A dazzling, sophisticated lady dressed in a gorgeous sari. She introduced herself as Dina Bakil. She said that she's the new editor of the Express magazine. I said, wow. Anyway, we sat down, exchanged some pleasantries, and then she told me that Mr. Goenka had specifically appointed her to revamp the Sunday Express and give it a totally new look with a lot of bright visuals on the front page with more political content and also an editorial cartoon on page 2. So she said, Eskay, can you do this for me? Now, I was flattered in the sense that I've never done this before, but like I always say, where there is a will, you jolly well find a way. So I told her, yes, I'll try my best, and that started my 5 year association with the Express magazine, one of the most fruitful and creative periods of my career as a cartoonist. I'm sorry, I'm having a little, yeah, there we are. Uh, this is what the new Express magazine looked like. Visual on the front page and editorial cartoon on the top right corner of the second page. Now, this illustration, I will leave it to you to have a quick look at it, and then we'll talk about it a little later. That a cartoonist, for a cartoonist, the most important figure that you can make fun of is a politician, and there you see in the picture the three cartoonists at the bottom is Dhar, Mario, Lakshman, and the one in the foreground with just a head is me. And there's a common man. There is Mr. Kushwant Singh there sitting in his iconic light bulb. And here is what we are portraying the politician. Notice the stance, the open mouth, and I will leave it to you to decide what is that around his neck. That is basically the type of illustration that used to appear on the front page. I will now show you some more of these front page illustrations. Jumping ahead. Sorry, as I said, this is not really. Yeah, okay. So these are some more examples of the front page. The one on the top is basically how the political establishment was controlling the bureaucracy. The bottom one is about how the politicians were now trying to promote themselves through the medium of television, which was gaining popularity. So these are all some examples of the front page illustrations. Here is one where the then finance minister, VP Singh, the common man and the other public waiting to see what he's going to pull out of his hat. Then there are some other ones which are just there to show you how important the front page had become and for the bold visuals that it required. There we are. In addition, as I mentioned, that here the paper wanted a editorial cartoon, and the cartoon was called Sideshow, and it basically was my take on the political situation that I felt was relevant at that time. And there we have like the common man's expectation, and then we have all the opposition party with all Morarji, Charan Singh, Chandrasekhar, Raj Narayan, Vajpayee, Fernandez, Sharad Pawar, and others. They're all sort of like trying to come up to the common man's expectation, but not quite making it. So this was my staple for the next 5 years: the front page and the sideshow cartoon. These are some more examples of the sideshow, and it just shows you the variety of the styles that I was using. Actually, I didn't have any real style, so I just used whichever style came to me at that particular time. The one on the left is my favorite one, and just to explain that, it is the tenure of Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister in the 80 to 84 time frame. There was a lot of corruption, and what you see is sweeping the all the corrupt things under the carpet, and rather than remove corruption, of the son Rajiv Gandhi is saying, "Mom, I think it's time you got a bigger carpet." In the sense that you don't remove corruption, you just need a bigger cover to cover it up. So this was some sort of material that I was playing around with during that time. The most interesting thing that happened during my interaction with the Indian Express was in late 1982 when there was a lockdown in Indian Express. And what is interesting in this episode is that it shows you how much of interaction took place between the editors of the paper and the cartoonists. I got a call from the Express to say that to come for a meeting in the Express guest house in Cup Parade. It was the evening, and I said, that's very surprising. Why would I have to go for a meeting to the Express guest house? And there I was told that the Express management had declared a lockout, but Mr. Goenka insisted that the Express magazine will come out. Now, the task of keeping the presses going was given to Dina Vakil. She was told, you use your editorial staff, you use your non-union staff, do whatever you want, but the paper has to come out. So the lead article was decided, and I was asked to do the front cover, front page cartoon. And the surprising part is, I don't quite recall what was that cartoon and what was the article, but it did come out, and that showed the importance of the front page during those days. The 1980s, as perhaps you must have read in the preamble to this workshop, or rather this talk, the 1980 was a boom time for journalism. I mean, the desktop publishing had come into its own, color presses were available, and anybody who could afford the basic amount could start publishing. So there was a tremendous surge in the number of publications that started coming up in Bombay. And obviously they all would require editors, writers, and cartoons. Also, to match up the competition, the older ones had to revamp their layouts and their content. And therefore, you would see that magazines like Illustrated Weekly, Express, Blitz all had to change the formats. And then, in addition, new ones started coming out like Daily, Society, Gentleman, Debonair, Business India, Update Pro, so you name it, there were many, many more. It was just like an absolute explosion in the number of magazines that came up. In addition, magazines like Imprint totally replaced their format. The Imprint especially was a literary magazine, very, very highbrow, very sort of exclusive. And then they realized that the readership was reducing, so they had to change their format. So all these magazines needed cartoons and caricatures. And this is what ultimately they were all looking for. These are all the front pages that I did for different um, publications. The one on the right actually is very interesting. It was like the first maiden issue of Imprint after their new format, and this particular one, this cover was the first issue, and that was plastered all over Bombay as an advertisement. It was very rewarding to do it, but it took a lot of effort, but it was fun. The other magazines, for instance, were like Business India, Update, Gentleman, Probe. So these all required front page and a lot of illustrations and caricatures on the inside pages. So I should share in the next couple of slides some of the material that appeared on those pages. Now here is something to show. Now 80s were also the time when there was this surge in people with affluence and people with a lot of money, and material things started having a lot of value for people. Everybody living up like the Joneses. So you see the first one with all these people trying to display their wealth. It was also a time for a lot of gang wars, and so this illustration is about the gang wars. Then here we have some illustrations done for, again, different publications. The one on the left was about some tribal women in a village in Karjat who were sort of like getting emancipated and fighting for their rights. So this was an illustration for that. Then at the bottom left is the one about people traveling abroad, because people had discretionary money now and were up for traveling. But then when they went abroad, they didn't know what to expect, and the chef brings in a plate of pasta, and they think it's worms. So just like a little take on the situation that people confronted. The middle one about there's this lady who's pregnant and she's already booking for admission to a school, because admission to elite public schools was extremely difficult. Then, of course, on the right we have again women's emancipation. The women were becoming more, entering the workforce and getting more, involved in things that earlier were not really their forte. And then we have the next one, of course, is again done for different magazines. I think the one on the left is for Society, where I guess that is my impression of Society. The bottom right is again of the habit of spitting, especially pan and all. So, I mean, these are all for different magazines and publications. Whatever they wanted, I was able to produce for them. Then magazines like Gentleman wanted very graphic illustrations which had more business relevance. And it was also the time when big industry was decentralizing. So the mantra was small is beautiful. So we have here how the large factories were converting into smaller units. Then the middle one, if you see, is relevant to, this was also the time when Japanese influence in manufacturing was gaining grounds, and people were adopting Japanese technology and work ethics to run the factories. And here we have, but it just doesn't work with our Indian workforce. So this just shows like the Indian with the long nose and the mask of the Japanese just doesn't go, Then we have the one on the top right is, of course, the '84 Olympics. There was bomb threat. It deals with that one. The bottom right is, of course, the Communist Party broke up, and it was like an internal breakup, so that represents that. The one on the left side, basically, if you notice, is that there is that skull inside the drop of milk. This was when Nestle's introduced powdered milk, and people were not sure, especially those who were not literate enough, that some of the women thought that maybe if I had more water, I get more milk, and then they were feeding the milk, but the nutrition wasn't going to babies. And in other places, they were mixing whatever water was available, which is often polluted, and that was causing the babies to die. So that means the intention was good, but the results were deadly. Then the other one on the right, bottom right, is there were used to be these quacks who were operating uh, people for eye diseases, and infections were happening and they were dying. So these were relevant to those times of what was happening in the country. On the bottom left is suddenly, people started taking drugs, not drug drugs, but medicinal drugs, and sort of like people were getting over medicated. And the top right, of course, self-evident, the dangers of smoking. The next one, of course, these are just fun sketches, illustrations done for different articles. And now remember what I said, that I didn't have a style. So depending on my mood and just what the type of publication it was, I just did what I felt was appropriate to that requirement. So next is there. This again was done for, I'm not sure which magazine, but I think it was Imprint only. These were just random sketches for different publications. These were again done, some for Illustrated Weekly, some for Imprint, some for some other publications. And it just shows you that the style kept changing depending on, as I said, on the editor's requirement and my choice. These were a little more graphic in style. As you can see, the style has changed totally. And the one on the left, of course, was deals with personalization. The bottom right illustration is the '80s were also a time when there was I won't say a crisis, but there was like thinking in the Christian circles that it was at a crossroad. The church was at a crossroad. They needed to adapt Christianity to suit the local requirements, and it illustrates the church at a crossroad. More literal rather than any opinion there. The top two are about the communalism that was which had reared its ugly head during those days. And the one on the top right, of course, is the division between the communities. Again, a very sad chapter, but this, of course, is my favorite take on what the politician is, and the one you can see on the left needs no explanation. And as I said, the cartoonist looks at the politician in a very different light as compared to a lot of people. This was, of course, Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister. Remember, I was there during the time she was the Prime Minister, and she was not very happy with the media because the media was generally very critical of her. So these are some illustrations and cartoons done. The bottom ones, of course, show how the how the politicians control the media, and they're like mouthpieces for the politicians. And Indira Gandhi is seeing like um, the media and the press as an enemy. It's like the Don Quixote seeing the windmills and saying that yonder I see a monstrous giant threatening me. So she was very, very much against the media. This is the illustration I did for an article that was written by uh, V.S. Naipaul, and it was an interesting article. Not that many people agreed with him, but it was an interesting uh, article, and the illustration was just basically adding to the content. This was an interesting experience. One day I got a call from a person, I think would have been, I think, in the early 80s, and he introduced himself as Mr. Mirchandani and said, I would like to come and like you to come and see me regarding my magazine. So I wasn't really sure what the magazine was all about. And when I went there, I found that his magazine was something like the iconic Mad magazine that was published in the US. So I asked him, what exactly do you want me to do? He said, I want you to uh, do sort of like comic cartoons like the Mad magazine. And I said, I've never done such a thing before. But he said, well, why don't you give it a try? And that is where I uh, sort of said, all right. And I did the front cover for the magazine. And this is what it looked like on the inside. So it is, as you, those of you who are familiar with Mad Magazine will perhaps see the comparison. And of course, you can't read this thing. So what I did was that I've done is that I've taken a section of this one part of the thing. I've enlarged it, and I just wanted to show you what sort of. So this is that section which I said, and here it is. The child is telling, and the person here is me. Curse these damn joggers. They're a darn nuisance early in the morning. And I say, now, cheer up, little children. How could a healthy band of joggers jogging on the pavements in the early morning be a nuisance to you? And the child says, we sleep on the pavement. So it's sort of like, it is a little poignant, and but that was reality. So like this, there are many other little things in that illustration that maybe someday if you go to the archives of this magazine, you might find this and see. And these are some other pages from that magazine for what I did for them. And this is another very interesting episode. And one day I was in a meeting in my office, and my assistant comes to me, sir, there's a call for you in your office. And I said, did you tell the person that I'll call back? So I went back and called up this person. It was Mr. Lucy Karangia from Blitz. He said, Eskay, you have to come and see me right away. There's a very important thing I need you to do. So I said, sir, I'm still in the office. When I get out, I'll come and see you. So I took a cab, went to the Blitz office. It was somewhere in the Fort area. Now, what had happened was that Maneka Gandhi she had already left the Indira Gandhi household, but she had challenged Rajiv Gandhi for the Amethi seat. Now, Amethi, as perhaps most of you know, is the bastion of the Gandhi family and the stronghold of Indira Gandhi. And here was this daughter-in-law challenging her. This was big news, and it happened in the evening. And Mr. Karangia said, no, I want this to be the front page tomorrow morning, first thing, and I wanted to hit the stand before everybody else. So you have to do a cartoon for me for this one. So we both sat down, figuring out what would be appropriate for this thing. Now, this was the thing that came to mind. Said the frog, quite puffed up to the eyes, was this bull about me as to size? Rather bigger frog brother, puff puff, said the other. A frog is a bull if he tries. So now this was the thing he wanted me to use, and this is what. You can go back to the next one. Yeah. So this is the front page. Now what happened was this was in the evening, and he wanted it the next morning. So when I went home, viewed the cartoon. It was I think 2:30 or 3 in the morning when I finished. Went to the Blitz office, went to the press, gave them the cartoon. They did whatever was needed. Presses started rolling. 5:30. This was on the stands, and that is how the pressure. And it was only my regard for Mr. Karanjia that I said I would do it. I mean, imagine working through the night till 2:30, doing the cartoon, delivering it, so that it's there in the stands first thing in the morning. Now, a very funny thing happened. I get a call from the editor of a magazine called Current. Now, Current and Blitz were the two, rival publications, tabloids. The Current was a left, right-leaning, and the Blitz was a left-leaning, and the two were always at loggerheads, each one accusing each other that you were not playing fair or whatever. And so one day I get this call from the editor of Current to come and see him, and since I was a freelancer, I said, "Sure, I'll come and see you." So I went in his office, and he said, "Come, please sit down." And then he did something very peculiar. He went, closed the door, and turned the key, and came to me and said, "Eskay, I will not let you leave this office until you agree to leave Blitz and only work for me." I told him, I said, I'm a freelancer. I'll do work for anybody who asks me. Why should I have to give up Blitz? I mean, he said, no, no, you have to this. And it went on for a couple of more minutes. And I said, no, I cannot do that. I'm a freelancer. I will do for whoever asks me. I cannot just give up the Blitz just because you want me. Finally, he realized that I was serious about it. But this showed you the importance of the front page. And as I said, I was flattered, but at the same time, I was a little like unnerved about the whole thing. Now, the funny part is that there were, the people I knew who did caricatures, of course, was the legendary R.K. Lakshman and Mario Miranda. But I was not aware of. I'm sure there must have been other cartoonists or who did caricatures. I'm sure there was some in the regional media and in the wherever else. But obviously, there was a dearth of people who drew caricatures. So the demand for caricatures was so enormous that almost all the magazines wanted caricatures. So on the pages that follow, I'll just show you some of the caricatures I did for almost every single magazine in Bombay. These are some of the caricatures for the front pages of the Express magazine. I'm sure most of you will recognize them. Raji Desai, Jawan, and there are some I just have shown the front pages because there's not enough space to show all of them. This is an interesting assignment again for the Express magazine. Um, the article was about the fact that if politicians standing for elections were to advertise themselves, how would they do it? And there we have Indira Gandhi with her. Some of you might remember. Point was detergent. And Indira Gandhi had a program she called 20 Point, which would bring prosperity to the country. So she would obviously use that as the the way to advertise herself. Margaret Thatcher would use, of course, she was called as the Iron Lady. So here you have the iron supplement tablets there. Then you would have Francois Mitterrand using wine. I mean, the French wine, uh, he could use that to promote himself. And of course, our good friend Ronald Reagan, the Marlboro Man. I don't know if you recall that he invaded Grenada just to get a boost in his popularity. So he would use Grenada as the basis for his re-election. So this is how I was using certain special things about individuals to do their caricatures. Next one. These are some caricatures of some of the writers who were in the news at that time. There is Salman Rushdie, there is Naipaul, there is Niraj Chaudhary, R.K. Narayan, and this was on the front page of Express magazine. Next one. These are, of course, this was also a time when there was a lot of controversy of American involvement in Indian politics, and there were a lot of things that happened during that time. And there we have Richard Nixon, Kissinger, Moynihan. So these are, again, caricatures for the front pages. My favorite, of course, was Indira Gandhi, and there she's shown as Queen Elizabeth I, same autocratic, behavior and personality, and this is on the front page. The article was, of course, that if she became too autocratic, would there be a defense takeover? So it was a little scary article, but again, front page. And of course, in most of my caricatures of Indira Gandhi, I showed her as an empress, and because of her demeanor and everything. These are again caricatures of different personalities done for different magazines. Um, Not, of course, other than Hitchcock, you may not be even aware of the other people. They were mostly either spies, Russian spies, and this, of course, Harold Evans was the editor of Times in London, and there was an article about it. It was on the front page also. Next one, please. Yeah, these are again Yasser Arafat, De Gaulle, Haile Selassie, Gaddafi. All were on the front pages of different publications. Next one. These are again Amitabh Bachchan with Jaya Bahaduri and Rekha, Feroz Khan, some of the sportsmen. And you will remember in the early 80s, there was only one channel, and these were the popular shows of those channels: I Love Lucy and Different Strokes and Star Trek. So these were just caricatures done of people and personalities during that time. Next one. These, of course, Zinat Aman, Shakuntala Devi, Khalida Begum, Kamala Das. So I think these were mostly for Imprint. I think, yeah. Again, Kushwant Singh. I still remember Kushwant Singh. He used to walk down from Colaba to the Times of India building. I think he was the editor of the Illustrated Weekly that time, and you could see him walk down from Pasta Lane down the causeway, dressed in his you know traditional T-shirt, open collar, and with a bag in his hand. And it was a sight to see. It was like a regular sort of event that took place for him to walk down from Colaba down to the Times of India building. Then, of course, Ramnath Goenka with a newspaper man. Then Lucy Karanjia. This was a illustration done for one of the things. This was when he was young, so it's not what he was at the time that I knew him. These are again Salman Rushdie. There is Khaki and Farooq Lodi. Okay, this was again done for Imprint, and this was called Paper Tigers. Paper Tigers was the subject of this article. With those people who were given undue importance in the media. And this was a series done by Imprint. There is Burgess Korean, who was the Amul person. Uh, People thought that he was getting too much credit for. You might disagree with that, but that was the opinion of the writer. Then the Indian cricket team was getting too much of coverage, which was not really deserved. Then, of course, there was the other paper tigers was Dilip Kumar, Sham Benegal, Mahesh Bhatt, Sharad Pawar. This is what they looked like in the early 80s. So remember that. So these were all, each one had a page written about them. And this was an interesting sort of assignment that I did. Now we come to 1985. I had started doing cartoons from 1980 and early 1985, and as you can see, it was a lot of work for a lot of publications, and it really got to me in the sense that it was too much to handle, and I had to take a decision that I had a job and I had this a commitment also. So I could not do both of them. One had to go. And I decided the job had to go and this had to stay on. And then I decided that I would like to be a full-time cartoonist. And that is when I took a decision, packed my bags, went off to the USA to be a cartoonist. And you might ask, why? Why the USA? Well, there's a long story. Maybe some other day I will tell about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sriram. It's just been delightful listening and looking at all these amazing cartoons. Um, there is, of course, many comments on how wonderful your cartooning has been, and how and how your style, and just how you've had such amazing takes on different popular themes. Um, I'm just reading some of the comments, and somebody says that they really miss this kind of political thematic cartoons. They don't see as much now. And Lakshmi Raman said that I remember R.K. Karanja and D.F. Karkara, and how fearless they were in reporting and cartoons because of how liberal the environment was at that time. Somebody is asking, just curious, the TOI had R.K. Lakshman, who had the iconic Common Man. So, how did you feel about doing a cartoon for the Express?
I didn't quite get what exactly.
So, if the TOI had R.K. Lakshman as the Common Man, and they've had that, how was it doing work for the Express, and what did you feel about that?
Actually, I really really never thought about that. I mean, as I said, wasn't just with the Express. I was with a whole lot of other publications also. So
Yeah.
I never really thought about it in that sense. In this, that was there a comparison, or was there a
Mm-hmm.
is this the way or that is the way? I just did what people asked me to do. So I really never compared at all, because that was a
Right.
different thing. Times of India was and R.K. Lakshman was beyond comparison. I mean, he was as I said, a legend, and I don't think anybody can compare themselves. As I said, he actually was the person who actually initiated my interest in cartooning, and that was at the age of 12. I was
Wow.
12 when When I first saw his cartoon, I tried to draw it. It came out okay. People said, "Oh, that's nice," and that's how I started from the age of 12. So he is somebody that you cannot compare. I mean, he, at the Times of India, was very lucky that they had a person of that caliber and stature for them. I mean, I was just somebody who just, randomly was available to do whatever people wanted. So I never really compared myself to anybody really. I mean, it was
Yeah, I
just
mean, you did say that you didn't have a style, but I think there was a versatile. I think that was what your
that
style
is
was.
actually, yeah, absolutely. That is, you see, because what happened, I started very late, and I didn't have time. I mean, the first thing was published in 1980, and by 85 I left. So that means there was the time span was too short to develop any specific style, and that also would only happen if you worked for a single publication. Then you
That's right.
would develop a style. But here I
Yes.
was doing it for randomly for everybody. So it was,
Yeah.
and it also depended on each one's requirement. Somebody wanted it this way, somebody wanted that way. I said sure. So I never really developed a style. I just did what I felt convenient at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I personally thought there was great versatility, and I guess freelancing in that way gave you the option. I mean, other options besides just
Correct,
sticking to one
correct,
style.
correct. Absolutely.
We do have someone who wants to make a comment, and I'm going to come to that. But I had a question myself as
Sure.
into like how do you see cartooning now, and do you think there is a change in environment and people can be as open or express what they because cartooning gives you a certain license that you can't do in maybe because it's satire, that you can say things you couldn't otherwise say, and do you think that still holds true?
Um, this is a very sensitive issue for cartoonists.
Mm,
What is the limit?
mm,
Where up to? So I, in fact, when I did one cartoon, I still remember it was published and it drew a lot of attention. And I understood at that time that every cartoonist has
mm,
to lay down, or what I would call a Lakshman Rekha,
mm-hmm.
that this is the limit up to which I can, push my views or my opinion, and beyond which it's not really correct. Now, I don't know if many people remember what was it that cartoonist um,
The one in France,
who,
was it the Charlie
yeah,
Hebdo one? Yeah.
what is, yeah, he, well, as I said, it depends what the limit is. Now, a cartoon, you can't measure it and say that, oh, this is good or this is bad. I mean, you can't
Mm,
measure any art form and say this is good or that. So I think it's the individual has to decide for him or herself that I need to only do up to this point, because
sure.
things that could land up in defamation
Yes.
or something, you have to be a little careful. What I do find, the change that has taken place is that um cartoonists like R.K. Lakshman and people similar to him, they um, use subtlety, innuendo, sarcasm, but no direct, sort of like, say, calling somebody a name doesn't
Yeah.
make it a cartoon.
Yeah.
You have
There's
to,
no affront. Yes.
yeah, you have to be not in your face. You have to be very subtle. I
Mm-hmm.
am finding that a lot of the cartoonists now do not have the subtlety. Either their cartoons are illustrative, or
Mm-hmm.
they are like in your face, within limits.
Mm,
So that subtlety and sarcasm and innuendo, that is missing in a lot of them. The other thing which I notice in the new generation of cartoonists is that, of course, now they have the digital advantage. They can draw much more brilliant cartoons in terms of the effects and the color and all that. So now everybody who can draw on a digital tablet thinks that they are a cartoonist. No, cartoonist is not just drawing; it is also the thinking,
Absolutely.
the depth of their knowledge, the depth of their understanding of situations. That
Yes.
requires a little more than just drawing, and requires a lot of uh, understanding and reading and being aware of the world around you. So I think that I find is not really there as much as it was in the olden days. Yeah.
Hmm. But would you say there's as much freedom to say what you want?
Sorry. Say again.
Would you
I,
say that there's as much freedom to draw whatever, like, say what you want?
there is freedom, and again, like I said, again, like I said, it's a very sensitive thing to talk about.
It is.
But it was there even during the time I was there, 1980
That
to
is
80.
true. That is true. There is always something sensitive.
Indira Gandhi, it was there. It depends the people in power whether
Absolutely.
they have the sense of humor, which unfortunately the only person I can remember who had a sense of humor where he could encourage cartoonists was Pandit Nehru, where he openly told Shankar, he says, "Don't spare me, Shankar." That means if you, which is that was a very very great thing to do.
Yes.
Currently politicians don't have the same level of understanding that humor is not it's not that it's directed at you. It is directed at the what people's perception of what you're doing, and that
Yes.
you can't change. I mean, that you have to accept. If people say or feel something, you've got to accept it. But then that means that the politician or the people in power must have the maturity to understand that,
Yes. And
which
I guess that,
again
yeah, that coupled with what you're saying, each cartoon's own Lakshman Rekha will both, I guess, come into
exactly,
play.
as I'm saying, it's a very
Yeah.
difficult thing to lay down.
Yeah. True. Okay. Shrikant is written to say that he's a very passionate follower of the media and he would like to weigh in on the editor's personalities and the atmosphere and the editorial zone. So, if we can, don't mind, Shrikant, just, in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, if you want to unmute and say share your experiences, that'll be great. Shrikant?
Yeah. I mean, my video. I think you're not put. That's perfectly fine. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, uh, no,
You
no,
can
that's fine.
switch it on if you want now, or
Okay.
not, whichever.
No, it says disabled by you, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Sure, sure. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you so very much, Surajji. Prerna, I didn't. I want the question was for him to weigh in about
Oh,
editors'
sorry.
personalities
Sorry. Huh.
and this one. I wanted to talk about something else. So, if you have time, I'd like to ask him because he's spoken exclusively about the cartooning word. So,
Sure.
I wanted him to weigh in on the atmosphere in the editorial room and the personalities of the editors and after that if you have time I can come in with my sort of
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Suraj, what did you say?
one thing I will, excuse me, that the time that I was there, the editor and the cartoonist were actually a combination. That means when we discussed, I would be sitting in the office of Dina Vakil. We would both sit down, select the article, we would discuss what should be like the theme of the cartoon, and the rest was left to me of how I would carry that through. They would, in the layout, say that we would like this to be spread over how many columns, or a little bit here and a little bit there. So they would give me the layout, and we would discuss the article, and then the rest was left to me. There was a tremendous linkage between the editor and the cartoonist. I guess the same was even with R.K. Lakshman in Times of India. He was, like the editor was like just in tandem with the cartoonist, and the cartoonist enjoyed a tremendous amount of respect and position in the publication. Um, that was something which I found with all the editors. I mean, when I went to Mr. Karanja, we'd go straight to his office, we'd sit down and would come sit down Eskay and we would discuss and, do it back and forth and everything. So I think the cartoonists had a very high level of acceptance inside the media, which I'm not too sure is the state now, in the sense that, and I feel very, I wouldn't say sad, but I feel that that status of the cartoonist has really come down, and the status of cartoon, the editorial cartoon itself. I mean, it used to be on the front page. Now you'll be, especially I feel bad for Times of India. I mean, the cartoon by Advadio is sometimes on the page three, sometimes at the last page at the bottom, one column or two columns wide. That means the front page is an advertisement. And the cartoon, which used to be, like in Lakshman's case, on the front page, is now, some random place, maybe at the, here or there. So it shows that um, the value to the publication of the cartoon has diminished. This is what I have observed. I haven't observed too much, but this is what I feel from what I've seen. So it's not the same. In my days, it was like you were pretty high up on the totem pole,
Mm. That's lovely, and I guess that should be, since it's all so topical, that the cartoonist should be involved with the editorial team
Yeah,
very closely. Yeah. Anyway, Shrikant, we have maybe a minute or two. Would you like to add something?
Yes, not specifically to what he has said, because I was not there in any of the
Yes.
editorial rooms except for a brief internship with the Daily. How did a Navy man land there is a different story. But
Sure.
well, basically, I'm a Navy person, but been studying media for 40 years. So I just wanted to bring out a couple of points with Surajji's indulgence. One, I think that the 80s was in many ways the high point because there was this great energy that came after emergency. Until then, newspapers and print used to be very staid and largely restricted to political reportage. I think what happened in 80s was both the spread happened, you had features becoming more prominent, lot more topics discussed. And in short, this was before the TV and social media came. So print became your great pulpit where ideas got discussed and debated, and so it got a sort of flavor and fizz of its own. That having been said, I think one of the limitations was that for all that they spoke and said, English print media was very limited in its overall reach in the country, and there was a kind of elitist attitude about them, which I think perhaps contributed to the downfall in the 90s when response departments and sales took over and the editorial people got subordinated. I mean, that's my very short reading of the social trajectory of media from the 80s and 90s, but very happy and willing to engage more one with others who are interested.
Okay, thanks, Shrikant, and thanks for sharing that. I just have one more question, which is, Suraj, what do you think of the cartoons of Marmik?
um, actually, I don't follow that at all. I do
Okay,
see, yeah. Um, it's a regional magazine, so I'm not very familiar with that.
no problem at all. Again, there are many comments on how fantastic your cartoons are, and how wonderful this talk was. So thank you once again for joining us today. Thank you everybody else who's joined the talk, and we hope to see you again next Saturday. But for now, thank you and good night.
Thank you very much.